your boots, put on your dancing moves. No time to waste. Oh, ready, set, and go. Yay, fire up the show. Oh, ready, set, and go. Let the good times roll.
We talking about practice, not a game, not a game, not a game. We talking about practice.
Practice. From a very early age, we're all exposed to some level of practice. Maybe it's from a youth sports league, music lessons, maybe it's something else. But we're all taught the way to improve is through practice because practice makes perfect. We grow up, adopt craps as our game of choice, and at some point we ask ourselves, can I do better? We buy a $10 felt from Amazon, a set of casino chips from the local Walmart, and start tossing dice into a box. Fire up YouTube and start searching for different betting strategies, and maybe we might just buy a book or two. And before too long, we start to think, what if I grip the dice this way? Or what if I toss them that way? Can I get more than 4 or 5 rolls before the 7? And we begin reading about posts on the internet about Golden Touch craps, Axis Power craps, or Advantage dice control. And in our optimism, we take that next step and enroll in a class to be trained by the best techniques of the game. But then we go home, and the excitement of the class and the meeting the legends and having a great time with the people that have some of the same interests, it starts to wear off, and you find yourself all alone at the practice table. Well, it's been my experience that most people just play the game at home. Maybe they keep track of the results, maybe they just try to remember what they learned in class. But is there a better way? You go back to the athletes and the musicians. They have drills and exercises. They rarely play an entire game or perform the entire show. They work on specific actions to achieve specific results. And that's what we're here to discuss tonight. How do you practice? So tonight, we have Ed Robinson from Roll to Win Craps here to help us explore this topic. Ed, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me back, Dave. I appreciate it.
Your tagline, there it is right there. Practice like you play like you practice. It makes you the resident expert for tonight's topics.
It's important, and like you said in your monologue there, it's important to practice.
Yeah,
and it's not only important to practice, but it's also important to practice correctly. You could even say perfect, practice like you play like you practice. Yes, but you should put in there perfect practice leads to perfect play.
Right. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do here tonight. We're going to talk about practice. But before we get started, it's been about a year since you've been on the show. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've been up to this last year? You've been out there playing?
Yeah, I've been playing a lot. And thank you for having me back on when my channel was just barely scratching the surface out there, because you gave me a big boost, and I've always appreciated that. I spend most of my time in Mississippi. I've been to Vegas a couple of times. I was in Biloxi about 2 weeks ago and had a great little trip. Ran into one of the viewers just nonchalantly at Harris. Ran into one of the viewers. Was playing with another friend who's been in that legendary status, but he's kind of an unknown, so I won't reveal who he is, but he spends about 6 months out of the year actually living in casinos. And he says he's got about 20 years on me, but he doesn't look it.
Well, that's awesome. So what's been up with your channel? What have you been focused on doing in your channel?
Well, the channel has taken off. I finally hit 1,000 subscribers last week. It seemed like the more I got. I don't know. It was just kind of ramping up, and I got a lot of help from the friends over at Craps Nation pushing the channel. But we're doing. I started the first of the year. I put out the challenge, and we've had a great response to it. You included. Send me a video of some tosses, and I'll try to give you some pointers, a little critique. I think we've done 4. I actually got 2 in today. to go through. I'm trying to get one out a week if possible on that, and continue the normal tossing videos that I do.
Yeah, yeah.
There's not many people out there tossing the dice.
No, and that that service that you've recently started analyzing people's tosses. Nobody's doing that. Nobody's taking time to look at somebody else and say, here's what we can observe. And it's hard to do from a video, but it doesn't mean it can't be done. So
Well,
I applaud you for trying to do something a little bit different and unique.
well, it is harder, and I do watch the videos several times before I actually go in and put my critique in. I want to look at them two or three times, uh, make sure I'm picking up the things that are easiest to correct.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, you've said it
and I've
on a
got
couple of your shows that you don't want to be overly critical, and yeah,
no, you don't want to try to change too many things on at one time.
right,
It's a journey to get into that correct tossing uh, practice that you need.
yeah.
And it's easy to build bad habits.
You are spot on, and that was actually my greatest fear after uh, taking a class. I've actually taken classes from several people, and my fear was coming back to my practice table with a bad habit that I didn't quite learn something right, but I think I did, and
Yeah.
it takes a long time to correct those bad habits. So that's why I really want to say thank you for being out there to help us take a look at what we've got, have an independent eye, and give some advice. Now,
You know, we all want better shooters at the table.
yeah,
So, I mean,
yeah,
so maybe I'm doing it for my own benefit, even though I probably won't play with a lot of the people, but you all will. Somebody will play with these people, and if they're a little bit better than they would have been, then we've succeeded.
yeah. I've said it all along. I'm very rarely the best person or the best shooter at the table. So uh, I hold my own, but I'm not the best, and I know that. So uh, you know, knowing who you're shooting with, that they are a qualified shooter, definitely makes your night go a little bit better,
Well, it helps, but you've got to qualify every shooter at the table, including yourself.
including yourself. That's right. That's right.
You've got to, because I've had nights where I couldn't throw dice through a barn door.
Yeah, I think everybody has, and that's another thing. As we learn how to practice, um, you can't necessarily accommodate every casino condition there is. Yeah, smoke, music, noise, crowd, the bouncy table. Table is an inch taller than another table. It's got all sorts of different elements that's designed to mess up your game, and that's why I think it's a little bit more more important that we know how to practice.
If you can learn the correct mechanics on your table, then it's just a matter of adjustment, not going in there full bore when you walk up to the table, but doing some practice tosses.
Yeah,
I mean, they don't give you mulligans. There's no mulligans in a casino, but you don't have to go 110 or whatever. You don't have to do any bets other than a pass line.
yeah.
So um, a lot of friends of mine that are really good shooters, they'll play a pass line and they won't even put any odds on it until they're comfortable with their toss.
So, my own style for getting comfortable at the table or qualifying myself. The first time I'm up to shoot, I actually put in a don't pass bet on myself, and then I'll place that point and nothing else, nothing
Yeah,
else. I want that first time at the table to be uh, no stress, no risk, just
right.
get in tune with that table.
And that's good. That's good advice. I should listen to that.
All right, guys. So before we really dig into the meat of the show, I want to say that I have my very first sponsor for our shows, and I've got a little clip that I want to share with you, and we'll be back in about 30 seconds or so. Michael Feldman is an independent casino host that's been on the show before. He's known for getting us spectacular comps and deals on casino packages in places like Atlantic City, Las Vegas, and many other markets around the U.S. But today, he's got a deal from Norwegian Cruise Lines on an amazing trip from New York City to Bermuda. Depending on your level of casino play, you may be eligible for deep discounts or even comped rooms or suites. The trip is this April, and they're booking now. Cruising's not your thing? Well, Michael can still help you with discounts and comps to many of your favorite casino destinations. So if it's time to get out of the house and go on an adventure, contact Michael Feldman and see what having an independent host can do for you. All right, so there it is, our first sponsor for the Same Bet Show. So Michael Feldman, thank you, I appreciate it, and I hope that this turns into a little bit of business for you. All right, Ed, so let's get into the meat of things, and let's talk about practice and what are the fundamentals of craps that we should be focused on when we're doing a practice session.
A repetitive grip is my first thing, and then when I've got my grip where it should be, I want to make sure that my dice are sitting on the edge of the table. At Access Power Craps, we teach shooting with the edges on the table. So we launch directly from the table. There's no backswing. It's not really the old par toss either. It's an APC toss. And the hardest thing is it's easy. Once you've got them set down flat, it's really easy to know that they're square, but you've got to make sure they're square with the side walls as well, because you want your dice to go as square and land flat. If you're going to practice nothing else, practice tossing so that they land flat about 3 or 4 inches from the wall. Once you've got that down, practice really becomes a lot easier.
That's actually one of the hardest things for me to I guess know. Did my dice land flat or not? How do you know?
Well, a lot of times on my table, I've got a hard end, hard surface end, and when they land flat, they clack. I mean, you hear that crack, and that's a bona fide way to know. So if you've got a hard surface, and then you've got a bouncy surface to practice your casino play in, but you can dial that toss in pretty well when you start getting it to clack real loud on that hard surface table quite often. You're not going to do it every time. Okay. You can also tell by the way they land. I mean, if they hit and they go every which way, they didn't land flat, right? My biggest problem I have is judging the distance. I try to put mine so close to the wall that a lot of times I'll actually hit the base rubber a few tosses in a session.
And do you change your landing zone based on the conditions of a table? For instance, if it's a slightly more bouncy surface, do you go?
It depends on how it's playing. The Circa tables, for example, if anybody's been to the Circa, they know that those are trampolines. And I had a hard time with those tables and about the third or fourth time, but I was shooting at a long distance from the hook. And I finally, I have to kind of bend. I want to keep my dice really low on those long distance throws. And once I found a good place for it to land, I kind of lean down into the table almost and release. It's okay. Kind of a weird thing, but I catch myself just leaning further on down rather than raising my arm. Other than that, I guess you would just say it's changing the arc, and that's what I'm doing, but I'm kind of mechanically doing it. It's making me do it. You're going to adjust the distance from the wall, but I will always start close to the wall and work my way out.
That's good advice. So if you're not getting the results that you want, if you're seeing things start to go off axis, you bring it back maybe a little bit, half inch, an inch away from that wall. Also, throwing at the wall, you're avoiding a lot of those pass line and don't pass bets.
Well, they're going to be in your way unless you've got some good blockers on that end. They're going to be down there, yes.
Yeah. Well. All right, so we've talked a little bit about the grip, talked a little bit about how you launch it or the swing. How important is your posture?
It's critical. Um, Perfect posture should be your feet should be about shoulder width. What I used to call an old football stance, before you went down
Mm.
into a 3-point stance, maybe not quite that wide, but close. You want you want to brace yourself to the table. I pull myself as tight to the edge of that table as I can, and I hold on with my left hand into the chip rail, and all I'm moving is my right arm. And if you play with me, those of you that have out there, I don't move much. When I'm shooting, when I get locked in and I feel good, I don't move a thing. If I move this left arm, it's because it's getting cramped or it's going to sleep. But I'll reach down there and I'll find that really warm spot where my hands have been sitting, and I go right back to the same place. Um, so once I'm locked in with that posture, square to the table, feet equal weight on both feet. You don't stand there with one foot with all your weight on one foot and the other foot behind you on its toe or something. I mean, you see that all the time, but that's not the correct stance.
Yeah. Ed, you and I were just talking about it before the show that I actually have to stand on my tiptoes. I'm a kind of a short guy, and I can't I can't set my dice in the proper spot without getting up, another inch or so. So I think posture is even more important when you have to balance yourself on a couple of toes.
Well, if you're on your tiptoes, then you're equal weight. If you're not, you can tell real quick because one leg starts getting really tired. The main thing I hope you're doing is you're resting, coming down off your toes while they're paying out the prop bets and all that
Oh yeah,
stuff. And so, you got to come back. If you've got to get on your toes, then go down to your heels and wait on the dice, and then go back up on your toes.
yeah, and it's just my own personal preference, but I don't actually come down off my toes until the dice have stopped moving.
You got to have some sore legs at the end of a long session.
I don't play long
Your
sessions.
calves, man. Your calves have got to be strong.
I'm the king of get in, get out, or get up and get gone.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't usually play some marathon sessions, or if I do, it's at a very packed table, and it takes an hour before I have to stand on my toes again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go back again. I think we're going to try to do it in a sequence here. So it starts with your posture, then it goes to your grip. Do you have a good
Yeah.
grip? And then your swing,
Yeah.
whether it be a pendulum or from the deck. Those are the first three. But then comes the release, and
Yeah.
just like there's different ways to grip it, there are different ways to release it. Some people do the full hand opening. Some people
Yeah.
try to keep it down like that. Do you have a recommended release?
I recommend that you just drop the thumb
Drop the thumb.
when you're releasing. Drop the
So
thumb. It's not this. It's not this. It's drop the thumb. It's a thumb drop.
Noticed that a lot of times when I drop the thumb, I actually go like that. It goes to the side.
That's swiping the thumb. That's not dropping.
Yeah, exactly. But in my mind, I think I'm about to drop it, but I noticed that what I actually did was I swiped it, and
Okay.
and that will mess up your results every time.
That'll send them a little bit wonky right there for sure.
Yeah. All right, so we got the release. You want to drop your thumb, and even I did it right then. I started to flip my fingers.
Well, yeah,
Drop your thumb.
it becomes part of that motion though when you're dropping that thumb. It's not us just sitting here going drop the thumb. It's just part of that opening of your hand. But you want your fingers to stay together as much as possible, or at least for me, I do. So that when I drop it, they're like this, pointing at my target. I'm watching the dice, trying to hit my landing zone.
Yeah. All right, so trying to hit your landing zone, and that would be the last of the fundamentals. So I think there's 5 fundamentals that everybody should be practicing, and you can practice them in sequence or you can practice them independently. So the posture, the grip, the swing, the release, and the landing zone. Those are the 5 that I was able to come up with on my own. And for instance, the grip. There's a couple of different ways you can practice the grip. My friend George, he likes to say, just pick them up, set them back down. Pick them up, set them back down, and just keep doing that over and over and over. You don't have to actually set them, swing them, and watch the landing zone. Work on the grip first and make sure it's comfortable and consistent.
Get them real comfortable, and where when you pick them up if they're not sitting correctly by the feel. When you look at them if you want, and initially everybody does, but you'll get to the point to where with feel, you can tell whether you're holding the dice the correct way.
Yeah.
You can tell if it's tilted.
There's been several times that I'll go ahead and throw the dice, even though I know my grip isn't right, because I just want to watch what happens. Watch and learn.
Do that in a casino, it's not a good thing.
No. Casino's not time to do that. That's when your muscle memory has to.
And I have done that. I could tell they're not quite together, but I'll throw it anyway.
Yeah.
It's worth it. You've got the dice. You're in control. Set them down. Pick them back up. Get them correct if you're in a casino. They're probably not even going to say anything to you. You just, if nothing else, just drop one. I go, oh, no roll.
Yeah, it was a mistake.
Yeah, I just dropped it. I'm sorry, and pick it back up. They're not going to call you on that.
So those are the fundamentals on practicing. Now,
One thing you've left off is the arc of the toss.
Yep, number 6.
All right. So, and I think I mentioned this before on a video. Originally, when all this was coming about and we had felt tables, the kind of go-to standard was like a 45-degree loft and a 45-degree down into the landing. Microfiber, I believe, has changed the game on that a little bit. I think it's a much lower degree toss now. It's more in the 30, 35 degree range instead of that 45 degree angle.
Okay. Ed, we've got a couple of questions starting to come through. Let's take a few questions and see where we're at. Dice Grinders comes up first. He would like to say, are you only analyzing par shooters? What about other tosses like inline, stacked, or off the wall toss?
Off the wall tosses. I don't know what that is. Dude, I've analyzed, I think, 1 3-finger toss out of the 4. We've had a 2-finger. I know I've got a Uri grip that was sent to me today for me to look at. So I'll look at anything. I'll tell you if I don't think I'm not going to be an expert on everything. A 2-finger grip, I can't tell you if it's correct or not. I can watch your results. I can watch how you throw it. I can give you some ideas from other people I've seen that use a 2-finger grip. If you're going to do a stack toss, or I can give you some ideas, but I can watch it, but I'm not going to tell you how to correct a problem on a toss I'm not familiar, or with a grip that I totally can't do. For example, I could never tell you what was wrong with your helicopter toss, right? I never could do that because I can't do it. I can tell you that, they're not sitting still at the wall, which is where they're supposed to land with a helicopter toss. And if they're bouncing back more than an inch, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
I'm going to make an assumption here, and please correct me if I get this wrong. We've also got Heavy out there watching, so I hope I don't get this wrong. But Axis Power Craps, you don't just teach one grip, do you? If I remember right, there's another instructor that does a 2-finger grip.
Yeah, they have a 3-finger grip we teach and a 2-finger grip we teach.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Next comment comes up from John from ProCraps, and I'm glad he put this out there because this is one of my favorite quotes from all time. It says, "Don't practice until you get it right. Practice until you can't get it wrong." I love that quote. And then Heavy came up and
that's a
followed
lot of
up and
practice.
said, Vince Lombardi was the man who originated the "perfect practice makes perfect" line. For those who are wondering where you heard it. I don't know who to credit for that. Don't practice until you get it right. Practice until you get it wrong. But I've heard that a long time ago, and that has really stuck with me.
Yeah.
Let's see
John's
here.
right.
We've got one more comment out here. Waylon, have you ever heard of a hold one, turn one? I'm not sure what that. I haven't heard of that
Hold
one.
one, turn one. No, I don't know what that is. It's got to be some kind of a release, and I don't know what that is. I'm guessing that's some type of release, but I've got no idea what that is.
Yeah, Waylon, thanks for sending that in. If you get a chance, maybe drop another comment about that because we're not sure exactly what that one's all about. All right, so Ed, I'm going to put you on the spot here and see if you
All right.
would mind. So, about a month ago or so, I sent in, I don't know, 15, 20 tosses or something like that. And you did an evaluation on it and you made a few recommendations. Number one was launch it from the deck. You know, I had some problems with my swing. I was doing it from the elbow and I was trying to do a pendulum toss. And you said, okay, you have two choices. Either forget that elbow, you need to lock that in and swing it, or launch from the deck. So you pick one. And so I did. I started launching it from the deck. So I took that advice. Another one was that I was setting the dice a little bit too far towards the middle of the table. You said pull it back a little bit. So I've taken that advice as well. And so yesterday I went and recorded a few tosses, and I was hoping that we could play through some of these and pause it at a few different times and get
All right.
get your input on that. So let's just see how this goes. I'm not sure how it's going to work, but we're going to try it.
All right. Let's do it.
All right. So before we play this, I just want to talk everybody through it. There's a lot going on the screen right now. So in the upper left hand corner, you have me and Ed, so we can see it and talk to you as we're going through it. The big screen behind it is actually from the end of the table, so we're going to be able to see what's going on as the dice travel away. You'll actually be able to see, am I setting the dice properly, and what does that swing look like, or what does that launch look like? The one in the middle is a camera down at the other end of the table, so you're going to see the dice coming towards you, and you're also going to be able to see the release. And then I've got two others. I've got a grip cam from the side, so we can see how if I'm truly square to the table, and then finally the landing zone. And I'm going to play through this and pause it, and we're going to talk about what we see on the screen. All right, let's go. Let's see what we've got here. So I apologize. The first couple of seconds is me kind of talking about it, and you can see what I'm doing is I'm taking the dice and setting them. I'm using the all 7 set, and then I use this little tool called a dice gripper. Now, Heavy, I'd appreciate it if you'd put it in the comments. I don't remember if you still sell dice grippers or not. But if you do, I'd be appreciate it if you put it out there. You could also search eBay or Pinterest or I don't know, any of your social media sites, Craigslist, and probably find a dice gripper. I like this tool. I keep forgetting about it, but every once in a while I'll go back to it. And I think that it's important because when you're working on 5 or 6 different things, if you can stabilize one of those elements, that takes a little bit of the variables out of it. So I was using a dice gripper to have a consistent. I just saw a comment come in from Heavy.
Yeah, I'm reading the same one.
More comments, and why crap shooter has chickens. Now that's probably a true story. All right, so Heavy saying 20 years ago he sold them, not anymore. So I guess that ages me a little bit. So search eBay, guys. I'm sure you can find one. But anyways, so here we go. We've got the you can see me setting the dice in the gripper, and let's keep going forward just a little bit. And there's not much sound here, so bear with me for a second. We've got 60 shooters or 60 viewers out there watching us right now. Everybody that's watching us
Good.
live, appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, let's pause it right here. So Ed, the first thing that we see in the first big window, it looks as if the dice are not square to the wall. And
Right.
so, and square to the wall to me means two different things. It's square to the wall right in front of my waist, and it's square to the wall at the back end of the table.
Yeah, you want it. You want all edges of the dice parallel. Uh, the one that's closest to your pinky, the one that's on your index finger. You want them parallel. I can't do this on camera. Okay, you want them parallel to the side walls, and then you want your dice also parallel to the front and back walls. And most of the time, we assume that those lines are straight on the pass lines and so forth. But you're going to have some casinos where they're not, and you're going to have some casinos where I can't even reach the pass line to set the dice. So I'm having to set them out. It just depends on the size of their layout and how it's done. But if you look down, you can tell real quick if they're square to that back wall, to the wall at your stomach, and to the front and back walls.
Okay. All right. So now let's turn our attention to that middle screen. Here we're talking about the posture again. In this example, I'm taking my left hand and I'm resting it on the rail rather than resting on my elbow. So that's something different that I was trying. And what I noticed when I do that, it pushes my left shoulder back and I'm reaching in with my right shoulder. So my shoulders are not square. Is that important?
Well, it is, but we all have different physical builds. What you might try you might try bringing that left elbow just up so that brings your square, but you want to be locked in.
Okay.
So I'd rather you be locked in and a little bit off because your arms are a little bit shorter. You're already on your tiptoes. So we all got limitations depending on the table we're playing on and our physical build.
So Ed, are you saying I throw like a T-Rex?
Nope. You did the other day though.
I did the other day. You're right. All right. So that's my posture. So that's what we're dealing with. Now in the upper right hand corner we have the grip cam, and you can see that it looks slightly different than that first one. This one it does look like we're a lot more square.
You do look more square in that one. So it may be just that camera angle on that far left one.
Yeah, it's either the camera angle, I think, or it could be off by maybe a tenth or just a fraction of a second. So I may have still been setting the dice in that first one, but it looks pretty good to me. And then we've got our landing zone, and I took a lesson from one of your early videos, Ed, where you got some chalk out and you marked that landing zone. So that's exactly what I did on this felt. So. All right, so let's move forward just a little bit and see what happens as I start to launch the dice. See if I can catch it in midair. All right, so here we go. Not much to see on that left-hand screen, so let's ignore that for a moment and take a look at the middle. In the middle, we can see that the dice are not flying together. It's a little blurry, but you can see the red dice and the green dice. They're a good inch apart, and probably going further as it goes down the path. And you could also take a look at my fingers at the actual release. You can see kind of a cup, and it's also twisted. Let's see if I can get the right angle. I think it's actually twisted this way. As I'm going further and further, my wrist is turning more and more, and that I think is attributing to the separation right here.
It probably is, but one thing I will tell you and the viewers is, we all want to keep them married together as much as we can. The most important thing is the same rotation. If they're too close together and the toss is a little bit one way or the other, they'll end up clanking together on the bounce, and that's never a good result most of the time. So You could almost say that keeping them together, basically touching is a little overrated if they're not landing perfectly. So don't stress over a little bit of separation
Okay.
at this point in your relearning. I'm going to call it that because I gave you everything I'm seeing so far. You kind of took my advice on, so I'm happy.
Yeah. So you mentioned something that I don't know how to do. You said the rotations, keeping the rotations together are important. What are some of the factors that impact the rotation?
It's equal pressure. And don't forget the thumb. The thumb is the rudder of the whole toss. So your thumb's got to be perfect on the seam, and you've got to have equal pressure and equal depth on all three fingers. And that's nothing but practice. I mean, that just takes practice.
Okay. Okay. All right. So let's continue going. Now turn your focus onto the landing zone and the little circle down there. And let's see. I won't be able to stop it. The video goes too fast, but let's see where they actually hit. All right. Here we go. All right. So it may be a little short.
You're in line.
Yeah.
Might have been short, but you were in line with it. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Ed, do you mind doing maybe one or two more tosses?
Go ahead. Whatever. You're the
Okay.
boss. Go for it.
All right, so let's set it up here. I'm going to track my rolls here, but we're not going to worry about that here. All right, let's see what happens here as I start to set them up. See if my posture looks the same. So here we go, setting them up, putting them in the grip cam or in the gripper, showing the camera. There we go, and I can tell again. So if I'm looking at my posture, I'm the same thing. My left shoulder is back a little bit further than my right shoulder.
Probably is, but this is a vast difference than the setup that you sent me on your original video. You were out almost on those.
I was on the don't
12.
pass. Yeah, I was on the don't pass bar.
Yeah,
or
so
in between them.
Closer. Yeah. So that's your posture is much better. Your swing is from the shoulder down to your fingertips instead of your elbow. You thumbs up, man. Thumbs up.
All right. So if we take a look at the grip cam and the first window again, I do think that we're probably slightly out of sync because it looks like in the grip cam that the dice are actually touching, the edge of the dice are touching the table, but in the first panel it looks like they're not.
You're probably a millisecond apart or something on the feed.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's go forward and see if we can catch the launch again. Okay.
Look at that.
Yeah. So one is flying slightly higher than the other, and they're a little bit off. They're not flat. They're not flying through the air flat. And also
your left eye, your green die is a little higher.
A little high. Yeah.
And it's probably leading the red die by a fraction. Probably. Can't tell, but probably.
Yeah. And in this one, my release isn't like it was in the first one. It's more of a...
It looks better. It looks better.
And I don't know if I was actually dropping my thumb or extending. I think I was actually probably doing both. I was probably doing that type of a motion. All right, let's keep going. Watch where they land in that lower right-hand corner. Yep, right on.
Good shot.
That's another thing that when we were talking about my first video, this is one noticeable improvement. Since I started launching from the deck rather than the swing, I pretty much nail that target. Or I'm either short just a little bit, or I nail it right on.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, that's the old number.
You have more control. You have more accurate control because most people cannot master that pendulum because they build in a rainbow out and then around or something. They just don't quite get it, and it's like this isn't a golf shot. We don't have a backswing and a follow through. We're on the putting green. Okay. And the putting green is just a little bit, just a tap, and it goes. And that's kind of the thought process in your mind you need to have with these shots. Um, I don't know why the pendulum. I mean, it started, and a lot of people gravitate to it, but they don't work on the fundamentals of that toss to get the correct results.
And that kind of goes back to
Some
what I
people
was
are great
saying
at it.
in the beginning, is that you have to have a quality practice session, and that's just not what I was getting with that pendulum swing. I could not get the consistency, and it's probably because I was practicing wrong. I think, like you said, there are people that can do it and do it very well. I just didn't have the right, I don't know, the right practice routine.
Well,
My bigger
you've
belly
got so
also
much.
gets in the
You
way.
got Yeah. I mean, well, but when you're going back, you got to go back square.
Yeah,
It does you no good to set your dice up square if you go backwards and you're not square when you get back there.
yeah,
So then, are you coming square again, or are you going? I mean, there's so much movement in a pendulum swing. That's why we teach. And I think it's easier for the newer students to shoot straight from the deck.
yeah. I agree. If it's some, especially if it's you're getting a first timer that's trying to learn some of the fundamentals.
Yeah.
That's one of the disadvantages of taking so many different classes that I've taken over the years. Is I have all of these different voices in my head saying you should do it this way or you should do it that way, and
And that's
which
the
one is right?
problem. If you're going to be uh, a Class A shooter, or you're going to be with Class B, you can't take the two and try to marry them together very well. A lot of them teach the very same type of thing, but there's some mechanics that are different. And so I would say, if you're not grasping this particular one, then you need to look at another one at home and decide then if you want to invest money once you've gotten it under control in your mind.
Yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
completely agree. Completely agree. I see Heavy just put in a comment. Let's pull it in really quick. He's saying, turning your palm to the inside or outside. I tell people in classes that they are turning their thumb up like they're reaching out to shake hands with someone. And I'm doing the same movement there. So, yeah, yeah,
It's like this coming in, and you're doing that.
yeah,
That's going to cause them to drift one side or the other, depending on whether you're turning your hand this way or this way. And if, you know, just so everybody, new people may be watching, if your dice land on the right edges, they're going to run left. And if your dice run to the hook from that position, they're landing on the left side and going that way. So, um, that's just part of the physics. If they land on the front edges, they pop up as well.
yeah. All right, so let's do one more. But while we're starting to do that, if you guys have any questions for Ed or would like to know something, put a comment out there, and we'll come and do a Q&A session here as soon as we look through this one more roll. All right, so let's see again. Setting the dice in the gripper. All right. Actually, I don't. It looks a little bit better this time. That maybe I don't know. Maybe I've
Yeah,
relaxed that shoulder or something. I'm not really sure what I
maybe.
did different, but it does look slightly different to me here. The grip again looks good in the grip cam, not so good in the other view. All right, here we go. Find my landing zone, and there
Oh,
we
look
go.
at that.
So the green die is starting to go a little cockeyed. So take a look at my index finger. So that would have been the one on the green dice. You can see that index
Yep,
finger is just slightly above all of the others.
it is. It is.
Yeah. So
It is.
I think just here in these three shots, I found what I really need to focus on in my practice sessions. I need to focus on
There you go.
the release.
Good.
All right, let's see where these things land. Okay,
Just short. Just
yeah, a little
short.
short, maybe just a little bit to the left, but overall, not too bad.
But Dave, you're so much more in line with your landing zone than you were 2 weeks ago.
Hmm.
I think.
Yep.
So you tell me, how's the transition been from trying to shoot from the deck versus the pendulum that you had? Tell me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so it wasn't as bad as I thought. When we first started talking about it, we were thinking, okay, now is the time to do it. I just got my table. It's been months since I've had a good practice session, so now is the time to change. And it within a couple of weeks, it became more natural.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have a lot of friends in the Golden Touch Craps camp, and
Yeah.
I don't want to alienate them and say that what they're doing is
No,
wrong.
no.
But I think for me at this point in my journey, it's best for me to launch from the deck.
Good. That's good to hear. And no, everybody teaches quality materials. It's just what can you get to with, some of it's body build, some of it's our athleticism, some of it's, heights of tables, all those things come into play. Um, but I'm glad to hear that I used to do a pendulum as well.
Hmm.
I started out with a full pendulum and swinging, and then I'd set them down on my knuckles, and then
Yep.
go back, kind of like you were doing, I think, at one time. You set them on your knuckles and you go back a little bit
Yeah.
and swing.
There's so many different ways to do it, and maybe if I stand up, I show it a little bit better. But you have them down like this, or you have them like this, or it
Yeah.
was just how you position your hand, or the depth. A lot of times I would
Yeah.
go all the way down to the felt, and look at even right here. You can see that my index finger it doesn't work. It doesn't go all the way down very easily. So
Right.
it's so hard to be consistent. And what I found is launching them from the deck when they're angled just a little bit, flat on the table, I can actually feel if my fingers are in the right place or not. So
Exactly.
I just think that, like I said, at this point in my journey, I'm going to be a more consistent shooter if I adopt the shooting it from the deck. So that's what I'm going to practice on.
Good
Now,
for you.
another thing that you and I were discussing a little bit offline is the height, the trajectory of my toss.
Yeah.
That probably goes back to my Golden Touch craps training, where it goes a little bit higher, more of that 45-degree angle toss. That I need to maybe work on keeping it, maybe, I don't know, 12, 13 inches off the deck, and still hit that landing zone every single time, and see how that
Yeah.
goes.
Deck height's going to be roughly 12. I mean, rail height's just to call it 12 inches. So if you're 16 to 18 max, I would think, inches,
Hmm.
you're still at a different angle than that traditional 45. But again, I go back to the playing surface has changed, and they
Yeah,
grab the dice different.
yeah, yeah.
So that's
All
my
right, let's.
viewpoint.
Why don't we go ahead and take some of the comments here? I'm going to scroll back and see if I can find some from. All right, so I'm caught up. Mid Atlantic Craps, our friend Jeff over at Mid Atlantic Craps. How much difference between the size of the dice, the .750 and the .775, when throwing?
That's a good question, and I would have given you a totally different answer 8 or 9 months ago than I'm going to give you now, because I used to think that there was a huge difference in tossing those dice. Mentally, I still prefer the bigger dice, but a lot of my casinos have gone from bigger to smaller. Um, for a long time, I would throw the bigger dice a little further landing zone from the wall than the smaller dice, only an inch or two.
Because of the weight?
I I felt that it was beneficial for my toss with that extra weight, and it's not much weight, right? But now I'm really more focused on just trying to consistently hit the same spot, and if I need to adjust, then I adjust.
Okay.
Because I mean, I can tell as soon as I pick them up which size I'm the casino's using. As soon as I touch them, I know these are 3/4 dice or these are the 0.775 dice. I'm practicing more with the smaller ones now. The smaller ones are harder to grasp, so I have to really focus on my grip more, and that'll help me if I go to the bigger dice.
You know, one thing, Ed, we didn't talk about is the depth of the grip and how important that is. Can you talk a little bit about what your preference is
Yeah,
there?
and I'm real skinny on the dice most of the time. Part of that's because I'm in the South. We've got a lot of humidity. I don't like skin. The more skin you've got touching, the more chances you've got for a dice to stick to your finger a little bit. So I get real skinny. I get about a half a pip
Wow.
most of my tosses. Most people probably need to start out a full pip, maybe a fraction more, just to gain the control. Um, I'll even, I've been in such humid conditions down here before, they're sticking to my fingers for whatever reason. I'd go to the Uri style and have nothing holding but the edges
Yeah.
just to keep them from sticking. But I've pretty much learned I can, and I will change if I'm not liking the results with my real skinny grip, as I call it. I'll go a little bit deeper.
Yep.
I'll go a little bit deeper
Okay.
and see if that makes a change.
All right, before we go on to the next question, I did want to come back. I received an email earlier this week and asking a question, and I'd like to go ahead and bring it up here. So maybe if we have time, some people can make some comments on this particular question. But Pablo writes and asks, can you do a show asking viewers for an update about the craps tables in casinos in Arizona? Well, I personally don't have any experience with them, so I referred him to Big AZ Craps, probably the most knowledgeable person on craps in Arizona that there is. So hopefully Pablo reached out to Big AZ. But maybe we have some viewers here that have played in Arizona that can put a little comment down there in the put some comments out there for him. If not, Pablo, thank you for the question. And if anybody has any questions and they want to see it here answered, send me an email, samebet777@gmail.com. All right, Ed, have you ever played in Arizona?
Never ever. I'm real limited on where I've played. Nevada, Mississippi. That's been it for me.
Yeah.
Never been to Atlantic City. It's on my want to do list someday. Biloxi's such a nice little town. It's got plenty of little casinos. You got the automatic buys on the 4, 5, 9, and 10 down there. I love that. I developed tosses for that. I've developed strategies for that. I was in Bellagio one time, and I was trying to get the dealer to make me an $80 9, and he didn't want to do it. In fact, he went, "No, you're not going to do that. We're going 75," and he gave me my nickel back. And so when the dice slid to me and everything was calm, I said, "I really wanted 80," and I threw it back at him.
Yeah.
But then he had to do the math real quick to figure out what it paid. But in my mind, I was just keeping my same routine going all the time. So,
Yeah.
but I don't do that anymore. I go ahead and go to 75 or go on up. But
Got to keep those dealers happy, man.
well, he was getting a little bit jerky with me, so that's why I said, "Nah, we're going to go back to 80."
We're going to go back.
Yeah.
All right. So more of the comments. East Coast Crap saying, I think Casino Quest has some dice grippers, and Joe Banda comes back and says yes. So if anybody is interested in dice gripper, check out Casino Quest and see what they've got.
Make sure you got one that'll handle both sides dice, that kind of thing. So the depth is. I know yours probably has got the. I don't know. I call them popsicle sticks or whatever that go under them to make them sit up higher, lower.
Mine's
all
balsa
that.
wood. So it's super thin, so I can add in more sticks to change the height of it to whatever.
I think it's a great tool. I've never had one. It probably would have saved me a lot of headaches if I'd have had one, so that I could have learned the feel.
I'm gonna talk the other way now. It also hurts you. It's good to have that, I don't know, the stability when you're doing some of the practice. But I've also noticed when I'm in the casino that I question it. My grip. It's like, oh, I don't have my gripper here to
Yeah,
make sure that it's
I
set
can see
perfect.
that.
So you can come to rely on it. You have to be careful with that.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, Waylon's out there saying sometimes I see people press the dice together against the side of the table to get them set. Okay.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen a lot of lefties do that. I don't know why. It maybe I just notice it more, but I see lefties will take it, slide them all the way to the wall almost, and then bring them out.
Yeah. Yeah. Joe Band is out there giving me some advice. He says, ask Mar for some of her shoes from the Hawaiian crap shooters. She's got those big, I think it's 3-inch heels or something like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I actually do have a friend, Zeke Lowe, and he has some platform shoes that he wears when he's
Well,
out
you
there.
know, I know a guy who takes a big book and he takes it. He shoots from the end, but he takes and stands on that book, and that book's about that thick. It's like
Wow.
War and Peace or something, but it's a big enough for him to get comfortable standing on. He
Wow.
stands on it at the table.
Hey, we've got Aloha Johnny out there tonight. Hey, it's good to see you. He says, I
Hey,
always miss the
little
good stuff.
Johnny. Yeah, you're
And
always a day late and a dollar short, John.
Kay's out there watching us tonight. We use a level and set it on the dice in your grip. You can instantly see if your grip is level, square, or not. Kay, I think
It's
I might need
interesting.
you to show me a picture of that.
Yeah, we need to see a picture of that because Kay's a great shooter. She's
Yep.
a pendulum shooter. Kay and her husband, they're both good shooters, and they've practiced it. They've got their motions down pat.
Yep. Yeah. I just remembered that before I took my break last April, I had been talking about having Kay come on the show. So, Kay, if you're still watching, I'll be in touch. I really would like to get you on the show here at some point. All right, Joe from Craps Master Journey. He likes the new table. I do too, and I gotta stress this, guys, that there is absolutely nothing wrong with the home built tables. I just wanted something that looked a lot nicer than I could build myself. So it was worth the investment for me and my family to have a nicer looking table than what I could do. So, Joe, yeah, I'm really enjoying that table. All right, let's see here. Going through some of these questions, they're all pretty much saying the same thing. Procraps, John from Procraps, he says, the less moving parts you have, the less things can go wrong that you have to adjust. Yep, very true. Yep, simple
That's
physics.
the whole point. That's the whole point of shooting from the deck.
Yep. But he also comes back and says the biggest downside I found from working from the deck is getting the velocity right. It's a violent start versus momentum.
I can fix that.
How do you fix that? Because I understand exactly what he's saying. The pendulum toss just feels so natural, but when you launch from the deck, it requires that jerky start, or for me, it's a jerky start. So I
You'll get
totally
the
understand
more
what he's
you
saying.
practice it, the less it'll feel jerky, though. I promise you.
Yeah, he goes on to
Fix
say, I
me,
think I
Ed.
struggle there and practice that more than almost anything else. Yeah. Okay, I'm just trying to come through here. Heavy says, you'll hear me telling the guys all the time to think soft and loft. Fluffy bunnies, clouds, marshmallows, Easter eggs, or Easter chicks, and so on and so forth. And yeah, Heavy, I've heard that same advice. Regina, one of my friends from Golden Touch Craps, also says, think fluffy bunnies. And
Yeah.
still, I could think fluffy bunnies all day long, and I still have a little
You
bit
know,
more
it's
power in my.
my toss is not fluffy. My toss is not soft enough. I'd love for my toss to be softer than it is. I don't know that it ever will be. We had a guy in a class in November, and he stood about 4 inches taller than me,
Wow.
a lot white, big man. He was like a lumberjack, and he could toss those dice and they just would just drift in the air and land softly and just bump the bottom of the bumper down there. I mean, he had the best looking toss for a guy that size. I
Yeah.
was jealous. I was immediately jealous of his toss.
All right. So Dan DVD says, if you're right-handed, what's the better position-wise, stick left or stick right? Wow,
Uh,
that's actually a good question.
that is a good question, and you know, there's not a correct answer. They're not going to want to hear that. It's where you're most comfortable at is the correct answer. Um, I'm not very good from stick right. I'm not comfortable there. Um, Maybe part of it's age, arthritis, what have you. I get achy trying to lean over the table and shoot down. So I find myself if I'm at stick right, I end up shooting into the turn, which is just a little loft toss
Mm-hmm.
into the turn rather than straight down that line because I just get so uncomfortable with it and I get better results being comfortable. I know people who prefer to shoot from straight out and they are fantastic at it. I can get by, but I'm nowhere near as good as they are. Um, Heavy likes for me to be down in the hook. I don't mind being in the hook. It's the
Yeah.
same. It's the same toss. It's just a couple of more feet you got to add to it. So there's a little more physics involved than stick left one or stick two. But you've got to just find where you're comfortable. But you also need some backup positions that you can be adequate with.
Mm-hmm.
You may have your dead on position might be stick right one, but you need to learn to shoot a little bit from the end and a little bit from this turn over here, just so you can play
Yeah.
sometimes.
I'm going to give a shout out to a couple of other people. Howard Newman, that's one of his strengths, is he can
Yeah.
shoot from anywhere, and he's got specialty tosses that he will teach in his classes. So if you find yourself, constantly shooting from the end or from the hook, there are ways you can do it. And then also give a shout out to Tony Leo. He's the one that actually taught me not to be afraid of stick right. Now, I prefer stick left, and I prefer that shot that you saw there a few minutes ago. But if I'm on the right side, I find that I have a very high off axis percentage, very high. And it's consistent. So knowing that, and I alter some betting to accommodate those kind of
Knowing your
results.
tendencies. I used to, for example, I'd get if I had to go into stick right, I knew that I was going to be off axis more than I was going to be off axis.
Hmm.
I just knew it. I'd go to the hard way set, hoping I could get 10 or 12 off axis shots.
Yep.
Because if I can throw off axis with a hard way set, I'm never going to roll a seven. If I get one, if I can keep one of them
Get one
off,
of them.
one
Yep.
on, one off. So, I would do that. You know what your weaknesses are at a position, you can take advantage of it. I was in Tunica right after Christmas, and I couldn't get my landing zone to work. There were a lot of chips down there, and maybe mentally it was bothering me. I don't know. It just the shot was not working. I switched sets that was going to give me a better chance of an on axis result using an off axis dice set, what I call
Hmm.
an off axis dice set. And I was throwing into the center of the table, across the table where it was open, and I was getting good results with it because I knew that I'd get, if I used a certain set, when they hit, they weren't going to go off axis.
Yep.
It worked. But
Yep.
you've got to be able to think through those things quick.
So I think kind of related to what we're talking about here, Tracy asks, does Ed believe that dice should stop right there by the wall in order to be an influenced shot?
No, I don't. I've thrown, my dice just don't stop there. And I've got thousands of tosses logged in the computer. and it tells me what my influence is. So, you know, if they're coming all the way back, then you're losing. Forget it. But I'm talking about if you're hitting 3 or 4 inches from the wall, um, and you're repeating that, they're hitting at about the same height on the wall. They're coming back at about the same pace, and you got equal reaction off the dice. They don't have to stop right there. They sure look pretty when they do.
Well, I found on my home table, it's a harder surface, and it's a lot
Mm-hmm.
easier for them to stop at the wall than in my local casino. So,
That's why I've got two. I've got a pretty bouncy end. Most of my videos I'm throwing into my bouncy end. Luckily, they don't look as bouncy as they really are because I'm
yeah.
learning to keep it softer, and I'm learning to keep it softer all the time on there.
Well, our friend Nate Fernandez, he actually gave me some advice as I was getting this table, and we were talking about, do I try to make half of it bouncy and half of it hard? And he said, no, just make it all a hard surface. You want about as neutral of a bounce as you can get on your practice table, and then learn how to make some micro adjustments as you go along. I thought that was great
Yeah,
advice, and that's
it,
a
it is
good
good
way to do it.
advice because I took the same advice, and I do, almost all of my bone tracker analysis. I do throwing onto the hard end.
Hmm.
All right. But I had my table was custom built with two stick positions, so I can shoot from either end
Yeah,
at the same distance, same rail height, etc. I don't have a dealer bank and all that low end out there on the dealer side. So both sides of my table are the same, and I can throw to the hard end, and I log them all on the hard surface. I feel like I get a truer reading of what my shot does,
yeah.
and then I'll come back around to the other side of the table and I'll toss it and I'll just throw chips out on what I'm hitting. And if what I'm hitting matches what the computer says I should be hitting, I'm good to go.
All right, moving on. Dice Grinders asks a question. Why put the dice on the edge instead of launching from the deck and keep the dice flat on the deck? So, we
All right, it's harder. It's harder. There's a couple of reasons, but if you've got them on the edge, you know that they're parallel. Obviously, if you set them down flat, they're parallel. All right, but look what my fingers just did. I'm this way, and I'm ready to toss, or I'm not this way. I'm this way. So how am I going to get back? How am I going to get my spin if they're flat?
yeah.
Right.
I think the
Well, then I
flat
got
is
to
more of
pick
a
up. I've
drop.
got to pick up. I've got to add another motion to the whole thing if I've got them setting flat. You got to do. If you want to do a drop shot, set them flat. If you want to just pick them up and drop them over there, do that. But if you're going to do some rotation and some control with the dice, setting them on the edge helps.
Yeah. uh, you've got a personal comment. Oops, I don't know where that came from. Sorry
I
about
do.
that. Yeah, East Coast Craps. He says I volunteer to be Ed's guide when he visits Atlantic City. I
You
apologize.
got
I
a
don't know
deal.
where that picture just came from that I clicked on there. That's weird. Um,
I'm glad. I guess I'm glad it didn't show up. But East Coast, you got a deal when I get up there. Okay.
all right, Solo Roller. Ed, have you ever played a Golden Nugget or L'Auberge in Lake Charles?
I have not been to either one. Um, I say that no, not in Lake Charles. There's the one at Interstate 20 going through Dallas as you get into. I can't remember the name of the town. I've stopped there before, but that was on my way to Dallas, and it was an excuse to get out and stretch my legs. Um, the only other place I've played that's been many, many years in Mississippi um, was there at Vicksburg, and it's been a long time. Um, and there's an Indian casino, Choctaw Casino in Philadelphia, Mississippi. I've played there a little bit. It's not my favorite.
All right, next question comes from Kevin, and it's about bankroll management. What is your rule of thumb for buying in on a $10, $15, $25 table? Let's just pick one of those. Let's pick that middle, maybe a $15 table. And what is
You
your
know,
recommended buy-in?
my normal buy-in is about $500 or $600. unless I know I'm going to be there a while. Maybe I've got a bunch of buddies or something. I may go a little higher. I may go 800, unless it's crapless. If it's crapless, I'm going to probably bump it a couple of hundred because I've got more points to cover. Um, but I'm not. I don't buy in. I don't buy in with big numbers. $1,000 buy-in on a table is way more than I want to put at risk. I can promise you.
Yeah. All right. There was actually a second part to Kevin's question. Do you bet with confidence when you're shooting? So not do you shoot with confidence, but do you bet with confidence?
I think we've got somebody who knows me. I think we've got somebody that knows me. Yeah, I bet with too much confidence, probably. I probably
I
bet with
think
too
we
much
all
confidence.
probably do.
I don't tiptoe in enough, okay? I admit that.
Well, that's funny you say that because his next comment says, "Do you tiptoe in to get a feel for the table, or how do you
At least he
overcome the
knows the
aversion to
answer. He
risking
knows
your
I'm not
money?"
lying. But, Kevin is a great shooter from the end. He's one of the best you'll ever see from the end. And he varies his spin for the results he wants with
Yeah,
using the same set. Now that's pretty damn precise.
yeah, that is.
Okay. I'm changing sets. All he's doing is changing spin. But I love shooting with him. Um, he got to stand there and collect money. I'll brag on myself, but he was there to see it. We were at the Beau Rivage on the crapless table on a Saturday morning, drinking, doing my coffee run, and I hit 11 points
Man,
in one hand on that crapless table.
that's pretty amazing. That's really
Yeah,
amazing.
I honestly I didn't know it, but there was a black chip better came in right as I was getting the dice, and he knew exactly how many
Oh wow,
points I hit because he told us. He said, "Sir, you just hit 11 points in that hand."
that's awesome. That's amazing. All
Yeah.
right, we're getting near the end of them. Let's see if we can burn through a couple of these fairly quickly. Dice Doctor saying, if humidity is a problem, couldn't you have a pitcher's resin bag in your pocket? Do you have any
Nope.
tips and tricks for dealing with the humidity?
No comment.
Okay. Team Hardways. Uh, when do you prefer to play craps, in the morning or the
You
evening?
know, I'm going to go back. You can do a lot of things. You can wipe your hands. They've got a lot of, they were putting that goo on them to sterilize them and all that kind of stuff. But, you could put a piece of chalk, for example. You could take a piece of blackboard chalk and put it in your pocket, but you're going to have to be careful with it if you're trying to do something like that because you don't want to be caught
I I have seen so many
doctoring the die.
people, they'll wipe their hand on the felt. A lot of people will do that, and I think that's a safe way to do something about it.
Yeah,
It may not be the best, but at least it's something that you could do and easily
yeah.
done. Back to Team Hardways asking, do you prefer playing craps in the morning or the evening?
Oh, well, I love my coffee runs, and
You
I like
do.
to get there early. Okay, um, I've always enjoyed playing early in the morning, but I play all day. So, I mean, I may not play at the same place all day, but I will play craps all day until I'm tired, and I can tell when I'm tired. And I'm not talking about, oh, I'm getting sleepy. I'm talking about if my
My
dice
second.
start drifting
Mhm.
during a hand and they continue to drift, something like that, then I'm getting lazy, I'm getting careless, and then I stop.
Yeah.
So, but earlier the better. I mean, I say earlier the better. 6 or 7 a.m. is a great time for me to go down and get a hold of the dice. I love opening a table. I love it when there's nobody on it and the dealers are sitting there waiting on somebody to show up.
Yeah. I I'm very fortunate that the casinos that I play in are not usually very busy. I can usually get on the table, and quite often I am the first one on the table, and that's at like 4 in the afternoon. Uh, so
Well,
I would
I
prefer
don't
to play in the mornings. The table that I go to isn't open in the mornings.
if there's one table going and one table empty, I'm going to go to the empty table. For me, it's just like being here at home in my basement practicing on my table. If there's no other players, I'm just shooting the dice.
Yeah.
It's just like being at home. So I'm used to playing by myself. I don't say I prefer it, but I don't mind it.
Yeah.
I've had times where guys would come up and just keep passing me the dice. And finally I'd say, I need a break. One of y'all just chunk them for a few minutes and let me rest my arm. I've had that happen. But I like mornings, and I am not afraid to open the table up, not a bit.
Yep. So next one, Robert Barnes. You have a new fan. He just wanted to say that he's just started watching Ed's channel, going to try watching all of his videos, and as always, loves the content here. Robert's been around for since the very beginning for me. So Robert, it's good to see you back out here.
Thank you, Robert.
Let's see here. That might be. Sorry, looks like we've got the girls' advertisements.
Yeah,
all
you've
over the place out there.
gotten all those good buddies out there.
Oh, hey, look at this. We got David Knoll out there. What's your favorite strategy? So David from Casino Quest.
Dave, good to see you, David. I'm going to catch you when I get out to Vegas next time. I want to talk to you about a little business deal. But, I don't have a fancy strategy. I'm trying to make bets based on what I expect my dice to do. Okay, number one. I'm fairly aggressive with the presses. I do like getting my money off in that process as quick as I can. So I don't max press. I'll do some power presses here or there depending on what's going on. And I will adjust where my bets are on the table if I'm not getting the number. If I think I'm supposed to be getting fours and I'm getting fives, I'm okay with getting fives. I just got to get money on it.
Yeah.
So I adjust where my exposure is before I go all the way across or something. I try to keep 3 numbers covered, maybe 4 if I'm betting even numbers, for example. And if I'm not hitting those, I'm going to slide that 10 to the 9. I'm going to slide that 4 to the 5, whatever I've got to do without adding from the rack. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once I'm getting my money back from the rack, then I can go up and out or whatever. So I don't have these magical named strategies that so many people have. I'm not smart enough to remember them. I tell everybody, this goes back to practicing like you play. You practice your strategies while you're shooting. It's the most complicated time to make the bet. It's when you're shooting. And you need to know exactly what your strategy is when you're hitting numbers. And when you make that bet, you need to know what your next bet will be if you hit that number. At some point, you're going to goof up, or you're going to forget, you can't see the chips. You got 3 choices. Same bet, up 1 unit, take me down. I mean, and that last one might be your best one. But
all right,
I'm not smart enough to do all that.
We've got 2 more questions coming in, and guys, I think we're going to call it after that. We've got Steve-O wanting to know if you've ever been to a casino in Detroit. If so, which one is your favorite?
Have not been to Detroit. I have not been there.
So I have been to Greektown like 20 years ago, if forever ago. It was before I was playing craps. So I don't have any experience at the casinos. I think it's Motor City, Greektown, and then there's one right over the over on the Canadian side. But I don't have any experience with playing craps out there. And then the last question tonight's going to Kevin at Turtles Midnight Craps. do you ever take max odds on the pass line on yourself? And that was something that I was kind of curious about, is if you do pass line or come bets. So
Highest I've
let's see
gone is 10. The highest I've gone is 10 times.
10 times odds. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that on
And that's
yourself or did
usually,
you do it on somebody else?
yeah, on me. On me. Um, might have done that on Mark Evangelisto a time or two. But usually it's 6 or 8. And so, if you've got $30 pass line, you can only go $300 on 10x anyway. So,
Yeah.
but that's a lot of money.
It is.
$300 on a 6 or 8 is a lot of money. I used to place them all the time for $300 and then hit it and come down. Just depends on what you're tossing and what you think you can do. But I do believe in using pretty significant odds, even if it's 5 times odds, because you may be on a 3, 4, 5 table or something. Most of the Mississippi tables are 10. I'm not going to go 10 times odds on a 4. I'll press that 4 to 1,000 all day long, but I'm not going to lay down 500 behind it to start with.
All right, so we had one sneak in on us. Another
All
one
right.
from Kevin M. He says, since David Knoll is in the audience, do you tip your dealers?
Yes, I do. I'm not as good at it as a lot of guys are. Or at least I'm not. I don't feel like I'm as good at it. If I happen to make a bet for me on a hard way, I'm going to put them on. But in Mississippi, my normal tip is I'm going to put them on the all tall small with me. And I'm going to put them on the pass line with me and give them some odds.
Yeah.
And I may, if I keep hitting numbers and I haven't hit the point, I'll throw them in on that number. That's
All right.
that's
So,
kind
so
of
yes,
how I
you
do
tip
it.
your dealers.
Yeah, and so at the end, I always have a hand in too as well. So
Yeah. All right, Ed, we're going to wrap things up here real quick. Before I let you go, we're going to talk about what's coming up soon, or coming up next. Here in about 2 weeks, February 7th, Julian Romero from the Vegas Confessions podcast will be on the show. Followed up on February 21st, where the Ramblin' Gambler from Casino Combat, and that's combat with a K, he'll be on the show. March 7th, Stephen Lambert, our own Slambright, comes back, and he wants to talk a little bit about electronic craps. And then March 21st, Don Woods, he's going to be on the show. Now, Don, and we still have to work out some things on the date, make sure that date's going to work for him and what topics we're going to cover. But that's it. That's what we've got coming up in the near future. Now, also, if we take a look at the calendar of events, here in February, Howard Newman's out still doing one-on-one classes in Las Vegas. This weekend, the Golden Touch Craps crew is going to be out there doing a seminar in Vegas. Then Howard returns to Fort Lauderdale, and then there's the Craps Cruise coming up in February 13th, followed by the Mardi Gras in Biloxi. Now, Ed, are you going to be at the Mardi Gras class in February?
I am planning on being there. I probably won't be there as long as I'd like to be, but
Okay.
and as much as I normally am. I've got a situation going on with my work, and it's probably going to keep me from going down Thursday. I'm probably going to go down Friday. I doubt I get to stay on Monday, so I'm going to have a quick weekend, but I'll be there.
Okay. And then April, we have the Norwegian Cruise Line getaway that we saw the promo for. And in March, Next Level Crafts with Tony Leo and Ron Van Allen. And then in June 19th through 21st, Jeremy from Color Up, he's hosting Las Vegas Dice Con, and so that would be a fun one to go to. If you're going to be in Vegas in June, that might be a good time for you to stop by and meet a lot of different people. All right, so guys, that's going to do it. Ed, thank you so much for joining the show again. I really do appreciate it, and I will see everybody back in about 2 weeks.
Thank y'all for watching. Appreciate you.